So I think we are live. So welcome everyone to this second in our market webinar series. I'd just like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of all the lands on which we live and work. For me, that is the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. So I'm Jessica Giaco. I'm the Industry Programs Manager at Screen Producers Australia. I'm delighted to welcome you all to our special series of market webinars, talking with key international executives who will be attending Screen Forever this year. And this is a way to find out about what projects they are looking for, as well as some thoughts on the state of the industry from their part of the world. And today it's an absolute privilege to have Carrie Stein from Dynamic Television join us today. Carrie is the president of Global Scripted Television at Dynamic Television. So welcome, Carrie.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So look, why don't we start? Can you just tell us a little bit about your role at Dynamic, and just for the attendees as well, as we progress, we will have questions. So please pop them in the chat box, the Q&A box, sorry, at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to them as we go. So Carrie, can you tell us a little bit about your role at Dynamic?
Sure. I've been at Dynamic now for a little over 2 years. I've known Dan March and Klaus Zimmerman, who are the principals, for a long time. We've all sort of orbited around each other, and they brought me in to expand our scripted slate, the original slate, as well as our co-production slate and our acquisition slate. So I sort of have a hand in all three areas, but I would say that more and more I'm focused on our original slate of development in the US market and our co-production slate.
Fantastic. So that keeps you busy, I'm sure.
Keeps me busy, yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about Dynamic Television and how it operates?
Yeah. We were an 11-year-old company, and I describe us as a small global indie. We are a distributor, we are a producer, and we are a co-producer. We have offices in Paris, Berlin, and Los Angeles. Klaus is the partner in Europe, and Dan is the partner in Los Angeles. And the first show we did 11 years ago was an Icelandic local language show called Trapped, a crime series, and it came out of the gate with a bang. It really did well, and I think it sort of established Dynamic as a company to pay attention to, that knew how to make a show in a smaller country and get global attention. It sold to places like the BBC and France Television very quickly. Eventually, it sold to Netflix, and it ran for 4 seasons. And since then, if I had to say what we tend to focus on as a company, we do a lot of crime. We do a lot of cozy crime. We have 2 shows on Acorn. We do a lot of sci-fi. We've probably done 5 shows on sci-fi. And then more recently, we're really expanding into the US market. We're currently in production on a Hallmark series. It's a Christmas series, which is a lot of fun. We do the show Drops of God. That's not a US show, that's a big global streamer. And then we have more in development along those lines. So I would say we are moving away from local language, not entirely, but somewhat, as the market has changed. You know, local language 5 years ago was everybody's focus, and those shows are really hard to sell globally and hard to make money on. Except for the needle in the haystack, the one show that gets tons of attention. So our focus as a result has become much more English language, and much more US centric. And of course, Australia is a significant territory for us for that exact reason.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. Drops of God was great. Loved it. Just wanted to say.
Glad you
Um,
like it.
I was wondering if, because you're based in the US there, can you just maybe tell us a little bit about what is the state of the industry like in the US at the moment? TV in particular?
Yeah. I would say it's never been more challenging. I hate to be, I'm not a Debbie Downer. It's not my nature. But I was chatting with a friend yesterday, and we were saying that we feel really grateful that we came up the ranks of the industry during its heyday, which was very different than working in the industry today. I was an agent for 11 years, so I have a unique perspective. I ran the packaging department at ICM from 1995 to 2006. And, today, if somebody said, would you ever think about being an agent again? Not in a million years, because being an agent today is really challenging. Packaging fees are gone. It's really hard to earn a living. The business has constricted. There are tons of people, especially in the US market, who are not working. I mean, writers that are not working. I had lunch today with a writer who was on a series, a big network series for 2 years, and he hasn't worked in 8 months. So that never used to be the case. Like if you were a big writer, a showrunner,
Mhm.
you just went from one show to the next to the next, and that was your life. And you made big money, 20 episodes. It was a great gig. And right now, it's all hard. It's hard to be a writer. It's hard to be an actor. It's hard to be an executive. I feel really fortunate that we're in production.
Mhm.
In fact, as a company, we have been in production nonstop since the fall. We've been involved in 8 productions. Some of them are our own, some are co-productions, some are, season 4 or 5 of series we've done. But that's a lot of production for a small company, and we are unique to have that much on our plate right now at a very challenging time. I will just say that those shows, none of them are making the kind of money for the company that they did 5 years ago. So when you talk about the challenge of the business today, the
Yeah.
challenge is that the value of content has decreased significantly. And when I say the value of content, I'm talking about taking a show and how you sell it around the world. You used to be able to sell multiple platforms in a given territory. Now you're lucky if you sell to one platform in a territory, if you sell it at all. So it's very it's a challenging time because we don't know for certain that our shows will sell. And that's just a harsh reality. And it's not just dynamic, it's every single distributor. And as a result, distributors are investing less money in content because we're not able to do the kinds of projections that we once did. We used to do projections and you could deliver on them. Now it's a bit of a guessing game because the market is saturated with content and everybody is strapped for money. Budgets have been tightened. People have been let go. It's worldwide,
Mm.
but the U.S. in particular. And again, I'm sorry if that's doom and gloom and really discouraging, but it is the reality.
Mm. Yeah, and look, hearing that reality, it does stand the dynamic. There is a bit of a testament to the work that Dynamic does that you are currently in production on so many shows. And yeah, and to our attendees there, let's not focus on the doom and gloom of that. I think what it's good to focus on here is like, but it's great to get that overview and we could talk. Like I had so many questions from that about the whys and the hows and all of that, but that is not why we're here, but also that is a great way to show the opportunities that are taking place for what Dynamic can do. Like you're working on the Screen Australia initiative, you've got a couple of shows progressing there, which is fantastic. Plus, you're coming to Screen Forever. So, in terms of co-productions, clearly there's a lot of opportunity for co-productions and developing those pieces of the financing puzzle as well. So, is that maybe also contributing to why you are dabbling so much in that space?
I think that's true. I think we've always been opportunistic.
Mm.
And I think that developing with an opportunistic lens is a really good way for everyone to go.
Mm,
Like, understanding the market, knowing where you have a relationship, and really targeting, I'm going to develop this for that person because that person told me they want X, Y, or Z. So we do that a lot. So in Australia, as I said, it's English language. I have long-standing relationships with a lot of producers and with many of the buyers. I feel like I understand the Australian market. And so our aim in Australia is to find really good projects that we can invest in early, help with the development, and hopefully, have a show or two over the next couple of years um, that begins in the Australian market. Maybe we also find a US partner, maybe we don't. Maybe we just sell it well globally when the show is made. Either way, um, the idea is to figure out how we can expand our own slate
mm.
and an English language television slate.
Yeah, fantastic. So how are you currently working with Australian producers and
Well,
production?
we have our initiative with
Yeah.
Screen Australia, so we've now selected two projects,
Hmm.
and those are in the process of being further developed.
Mm.
And then, I hear from producers in Australia all the time, and I
Mm.
talk to the buyers, and sometimes they send us projects to look at. The thing I would say is finding a project that you are excited about is just harder and harder. You know, I think certainly we go through this process as a company. I meet with agents and managers all the time, and I'm pitch things daily. And you pass on 99% of them.
Mm.
So finding something that piques my curiosity and feels like something I want to go the distance with as a show is just really hard. I get really excited when someone pitches me something that I think is cool.
And look, I think you're in the right place. I mean, Australia has lots of gold in that 0.01% category of what you're looking for, I'm sure. And look, just so you know, there is a question that has popped up to ask more about the Screen Australia initiative, but that's not what we're here to do today. We're actually here to talk about Screen Forever. And just another question as well about whether you're looking to develop feature films, which I believe is not the case. You're only in the TV space. If
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally TV.
okay,
Yes.
great.
But just to address the initiative, um, and I believe both projects have now been announced, right? So I think those are public. Um, it's such an exciting process, to receive however many applications we received each round. It was a lot, and to read through, and I guess I can say a couple of things, and then we can move on. The
Okay.
couple of things that I'll say is we are not looking for any content that feels like doom and gloom. Children being abducted, children being murdered, pedophiles, predators, and I would say there was a ton of that submitted. And for this is just where we are today. They just went into the no pile. So that's just important to know. We looked for content that we thought was entertaining and had something timely in its concept, that we thought would find an audience and excite an audience. And we looked for a bit of fun. That doesn't mean a comedy. We weren't looking for a comedy, but a bit of fun in the character, um, and a bit of fun in the premise, and a bit of a surprising element. I think those are the things we were looking for. Other things that we look for, we do look for good IP, could be a book series. That's always appealing just because it makes the project feel bigger or more expansive somehow. But more than anything, and when people say, "What are you looking for?" and I kick the tires on this stuff in my own day-to-day process of reading material. Sometimes I'll read something and I go, oh, that's cool. And I sit with it for a day or two and I kind of test myself. I kind of say, is that still cool? Are you still interested? What are the challenges? Because at the end of the day, we all know these projects can take 3 to 5 years to get made. And so it's got to sustain your interest through all the peaks and valleys. And I can't tell you how many times I'm working on a project and I go, ugh, I hate this. Why am I doing this? It's not good. Because projects go through that where they stop being, they feel you feel like you're never gonna get over the hump.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that's some important elements to take away for our viewers here. And with some of those elements that you mentioned about the Screen Australia initiative and applications you've seen, would that be similar to what you're looking for at Screen Forever as well when you
Yeah.
meetings you're taking there? And that sort of feeds into a question here from Dilek on the genre of content that you're looking for in Australia.
We always say crime, female thrillers, um, some kind of social commentary could be interesting, but we're looking for mainstream commercial content.
Mhm.
We're not, I'll never say absolutely no to historical, but historical drama is really hard to sell, and yet it always sells. We have one. We're not looking for another, but we do have one. And the reason they sell is because they're often just fantastic. So, but that's not my focus. My focus right now, more than ever, is content that I feel is sellable,
Mhm.
right? And having told you that I think it's the hardest market I've ever worked in, that makes sense to me. Why focus on things that are really hard? But I kind of feel like life's too short right now. I wanna I wanna focus on what feels doable. Having said that, the historical piece that we're doing, I think is fantastic. And we've been working on it for almost 2 years, and we have writers. We're not there yet. I have high hopes for it, but I will not be surprised if we never sell it. But you want to have one or two things like that
Yeah.
just feel are worth your energy.
Yeah, absolutely. So a question from Peter, does the TV series need to be returnable or can it be a limited series?
We're focused on returnable right now. We're not focused on limited.
Okay.
There are always exceptions, but that's our focus. I mean, if somebody came to me with an amazing book with an amazing concept that was a limited series that I felt would attract talent, would I do it? Probably. But that's not what my focus is.
Got you. Are you interested? Question from Dulcia. Are you interested in animations, TV, or documentary? No,
No,
neither.
I am personally, but that's not it's not my job.
It. Might you consider a 4 by 1 hour drama series?
Again, never say never, but that's not what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
And just so everyone understands the reason, limited series are as hard to put together as long running. The goal is that you do a show and in success, you repeat it. And Dynamic has an incredible track record of multiple seasons. I mean, every show we're doing, Trapped went, I think, 5 seasons. Summerall Murders, 6 seasons, Harry Wild, 5 seasons, Ginny and Georgia, 4 seasons, Drops of God, we just shot our second season. I mean, this is and all the sci-fi shows went multiple seasons, or most of them did. That is really incredible. And what happens then is you're not reinventing the wheel every time. You're just selling the next season of the show. You have buyers who are ready to buy it. It's a great way to build your business.
That is really impressive to have so many long running returnable,
Yeah,
not like one or two and done,
yeah,
That's very
yeah.
impressive. Um, Question from Bernadette. How far back does it have to be considered historical?
Hmm, not contemporary. that's not fair. Historical always feels like, 1800, 1700, 60,
Yeah.
historical, real historical. But there's always exceptions again, people in the US market have been looking for a sweeping romance for years, to replace something like Outlander.
Mm-hmm.
So, if somebody brought me that kind of a book, but again, that's for the US market.
Hmm.
Um, Although Outlander is set in Ireland, so
And I guess that's
you never know.
historical as opposed to period. So period
Yeah,
would be the 90s, right?
yeah,
In historical, you're thinking long dresses and
yes.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Bodice ripping.
yeah, bodice ripping, that's the way. We want a bodice ripper. So another question here, how about a returnable sci-fi in the tradition of Fringe or Lost?
Yeah, I'd love my Lost.
Yeah, it's great.
Lost was a big hit. I mean, what made Lost so good was, yes, it was sci-fi, but it was kind of grounded sci-fi, and it got so much attention. It's a big show. What I would also say though is, I say yes. The truth is, I don't know that that's um, I wouldn't say that Dynamic is the go-to company for that show. And
Mm,
I think that's an important thing to consider. You know, Companies have a reputation for doing certain things well. I'm not saying we couldn't do a show like that. Um, but our track record is very specific. We do crime well, we do cozy crime well. Ginny and George is a great guilty pleasure. Drops of God is kind of a sweeping cross-cultural family drama. We have
mm,
another family drama that's set in the South. It's a Southern Gothic family crime drama. So you're hearing some similar buzzwords from
yes.
me. Um, so we are not the world building company. We're not the company to go to do um, some dystopian world building show.
Sure. I think we're getting to the crux here, which is we can consider for projects for Screen Forever as well, which is that returnable crime, drama, potentially cozy crime, family. So these are the keywords if I'm right on what we're catching here. Can I
Yes.
can I also just ask, I've been hearing a bit about sort of with budgets pulling back, people are looking for maybe 6 episodes as opposed to 8 per season. Is that something that you're also considering when people come to you with a project? How many episodes?
I always think that a story is meant to be told you have to take as long as it takes to tell that story.
Mhm.
In terms of a preference, we always prefer 8 or 10 episodes. Um, I think a lot of people now just believe that it's six.
Mm.
But let's look at where we came from. We came from a culture of 22 for network television. Then it was, 12 for premium cable, then 10, then 8, then 6. So the shrinking to a certain extent is about budget,
Mm.
and fear, I think. So what I really like is I like looking at a story and saying we need this many episodes.
Okay,
I
great.
think the story should determine the number.
Thank you. So just when just coming back to Screen Forever again, when people sit down, they've booked a meeting with you, what do you like to see in the meeting? Do you prefer a verbal pitch? Do you prefer materials? What would you like to see?
I just want someone to get my attention,
Hmm.
however that can happen. It is, and I say that, and I will also admit that sometimes I'm not great at doing that when I'm on the other side. Sometimes when I'm trying to get someone's attention, I always hate that, when you have to pick up the phone and get someone to agree to hear a pitch.
Mm.
But what I've learned is that you have to say something that piques their interest, and the same is true for me. So um, sometimes it's easier to do in an email. It's like an email where you say, I hope, I hope this isn't presumptuous. I would love to have a phone call with you, but I thought I'd give you a couple of sentences about what I want to talk about and see if it appeals. You have to find a way to engage. And if somebody has a story that absolutely has no appeal to me based on their two sentences, I know. I mean, I know instantly if it's a no. I don't always know instantly if it's a yes, but I know if I'm interested in hearing more. And so here's what I believe about our creative process. I'm just one person. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean, or just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's not going to be the hit series of 2026, right? So we all have to develop stories that we're super excited about. Because again, the process of developing to the point of getting a green light is such a tough process, to get it right, to work with writers, to build the show, to develop character journeys and create drama and stakes. It's so hard. So you gotta be working on something that you just love, that you have to tell this story, you know? So again, what do I look for? I look for someone to get my attention, if that makes any sense.
Does. So we have a few minutes remaining and quite a few questions have come in, so we'll try to get through them all. Um, so a question here, what points, I think we've covered some of this, but I'll just quickly, what points does someone have to cover in a pitch to you for you to take an interest? So I would assume like budget, like episodic, like that kind of thing.
It's really just
Yeah.
to initially interest me in the story. If I'm interested in the story, then I'd like to know, do you have a buyer? Do
Mhm.
you have rights? Do you have a writer? Those basic things.
Sure.
And I would say for dynamic, you need to have a writer, and you need to have, if you're a new producer, maybe you should partner with a more experienced producer,
Mm.
because we are at a certain level. And when we're going to do something with someone from Australia, we want to have a pretty good sense that we can go the distance.
Absolutely. So if it's IP, can it be a new release?
Sure.
Sure. Okay. Um, are you considering very Australian centric or culturally specific narratives?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the reason to do a show in Australia is because it's set in Australia, you know. I mean, I think that Australian producers can find a book in France, I suppose, and want to put that together. But I always think that we're best at telling stories that we can relate to, that we're living. And so I think when I meet with producers from Australia, I'm looking for local content, local stories.
Um, if you did like a concept that was pitched to you, what happens then?
It just depends on what's needed. But we might, if it was IP and you needed us to invest in optioning material, we might do that. If it was to pay a writer to do a treatment, we might do that. I mean, again, it's a little tricky for us. We don't tend to do that. We don't tend to, um, when we work with a writer in this market, and we go to them with an idea. Let's say we go to them with a book and they love it, and we say, we'd love to work with you on this. Typically, they'll work up a treatment. In our market, typically writers do that for no money. I know that that's not the case in other markets, but that is the case in the LA market. That's changed in the last year as writers are finding they're spending a lot of time developing content that goes nowhere. They've asked to be paid for it, and a lot of agents are demanding that. And I guess depending on the level that you are as a writer, some are able to demand that and some aren't. So, so it just depends. I don't know that I answered that question very well, but we're open. If it's something we like, we try to figure out how to move it forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. Um, oh, we're nearly at time. I'll just go with one final question. You're happy with the treatment without the pilot episode question mark?
Sure.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you so much, Carrie. I think that's really all we have time for today. Really appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you at Screen Forever. And Carrie will be speaking at Screen Forever as well as in the market. And just so you all know, the Spark Connect Market and Conference takes place on the 6th to 8th of May on the Gold Coast. Please go to our screenforever.org.au website and look at the Spark Connect page if you would like to put your project in for submission to Ready Steady Pitch. And the Ready Steady Pitch will open on the Monday, the 10th of February. So thank you so much again, Carrie. Lovely to
My
see you.
pleasure.
Forward to
Thank
seeing you
you.
in May. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.